Hey, what's up guys? Hardleg Joe here with the YGOPro profile for the AA.A deck. That's Pure Artifacts 2017 edition. I'm just going to go through everything in here, and I'll explain how it works. So for monsters, we're playing all artifacts. We've got 2 Labrys, 3 Scythe, 1 Moralltech, 3 Vajra, 2 Caduceus, 1 Achilles Shield, 3 Bageltech, and 1 Aegis. For spells, we're playing 3 Card of Demise, 3 Pot of Duality, 3 Mystical Space Typhoon, and 3 Artifact Ignition. For traps, we're playing 3 Storming Mirror Force, 3 Artifact Sanctum, 3 Dimensional Barrier, and 3 Call the Haunted. The extra deck is 2 Gaia Dragon the Thunder Charger, Dvorzak's King of Heavy Industry, ZW Leo Arms, Super Quantum Mecha Beast Magna Liger, Wind Up Arsenal Zenmayo, Tyrus Keeper of Genesis, Utopia the Lightning, 2 Consteller Pleiades, 1 Volcasaurus, Artifact Durendal, Shark Fortress, number 12 Crimson Shadow Armor Ninja, and number 33 Kernomaly Machu Mech. The side deck I'll go over in a moment. So this deck is a strange thing. It's kind of a stun deck working on Artifact Scythe and Artifact Moralltech, but this also got kind of a rank 5 toolbox element to it and a beatdown element. It's really kind of all over the place. It's just making as much use as I can out of these artifacts. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the artifacts, they're all light level 5 fairy monsters, and they all have the same effect. You could set this card from your hand into your spell trap zone as a spell card, and during your opponent's turn, if this set card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon it. This makes the deck really unpredictable and really difficult to read. Lots of mind games you can do with this deck, because all your monsters get set in your spell trap zone, and then alongside that, we're also playing some really strong spell traps, in particular Storming Mirror Force and Dimensional Barrier. These are things that your opponents are going to want to destroy, while if your opponent destroys these, then they just get special summoned. So by mixing them together, you make it so that your opponent doesn't know what to do. In addition, this makes the deck really interesting because most of your actions take place on your opponent's turn. That's when you're summoning your monsters and doing things. We're playing a whole lot of Spell Trap removal, 3 Mystical Space Typhoon, and 3 Artifact Ignition. Mystical Space Typhoon, if you're somehow unfamiliar with it, just destroy 1 spell trap on the field. Really simple, and it's a quick play, so if you set it, you can use it during your opponent's turn. Same thing with Artifact Ignition, but it has the additional effect that after you destroy a spell trap on the field, you set 1 artifact monster directly from your deck to your spell trap zone. It also has the effect that if it's destroyed by your opponent's card, they have to skip their next battle phase. So just a little bit extra, you could set this, and then if your opponent uses Twin Twisters on it or something like that, you can chain it, and it'll still be destroyed by their effect, so your opponent has to skip their next battle phase, and you can still use it to either destroy something they control, or one of your own artifacts. In addition, you've got 2 artifacts that help destroy your back row. You've got Bageltech. If this is special summoned during your opponent's turn, you can destroy up to 2 set cards you control, although you have to destroy at least 1, so don't summon this if you don't have anything else to destroy. And then Vajra will just destroy all the spell traps you control. Vajra also has this additional effect that when a monster your opponent controls declares a direct attack, you can special summon this from your hand. So worst case scenario, you set 5 or 4 of your artifacts, you wait for your opponent to attack you directly, then you special summon this, and when it's summoned, it'll destroy everything in your back row, and you'll be able to summon 4 other monsters. Most of the rest of your artifacts also have effects when they're special summoned during your opponent's turn. Moralltech will let you destroy 1 face-up card on the field, and it notoriously does not target, which is pretty nice. Caduceus, while this is on the field, if you summon an artifact during your opponent's turn, you get to draw 1 card, which because we summon multiple artifacts at once, you can sometimes get 2 or even 3 draws off of that. Your Aegis, when it's special summoned, that turn artifact monsters cannot be targeted or destroyed by your opponent's card effects, and Achilles Shield says that turn your artifact monsters cannot be targeted for attacks. These we only play at 1 because they're kind of situational, and we do have a way to get them out of the deck. I'll explain that in a moment. But probably the most important card in here, Artifact Scythe, that if this is special summoned during your opponent's turn, your opponent cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of the turn. So if you're going against something like Zodiac, Wind Witch artifacts, anything that uses the extra deck, this is like the perfect stun card. You summon it out, and then your opponent is dead in their tracks. They're not going to be able to do anything. A lot of the point of this deck is just to get this out as much as possible, and then reuse it over and over again. We're actually playing 3 Call of the Haunted, which will just special summon a monster from your graveyard. More importantly, because it special summons them during your opponent's turn, it just allows you to use their effects again, so you can summon Scythe, use it for Ixie material, or wait for it to get destroyed, and then summon it again next turn to continually lock your opponent out of using the extra deck. The only other artifact is Labrys. Labrys does not have an effect when it's summoned. It just has 2300 attack, which is the most out of any of the artifacts. So it's just kind of a beat stick. It does have this effect while it's in your hand if an artifact card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard. except by battle. It has to be outside of the damage step. You can special summon this card, which is fairly useful, but most of the time you're not going to want to keep this in your hand. It's only really come up if you happen to draw it with Caduceus or something like that. So the final piece to the puzzle with all of this is Artifact Sanctum. This is a trap that lets you special summon one artifact from your deck. You can only activate one per turn. You can't conduct your battle phase of the turn it's activated. But that's not really important because most of the time you're just activating this on your opponent's turn. You use this to get your Scythe or sometimes your Moralltech if they're not going to go for the extra deck. If you just want to pop a card, you can do that. You can also use it to get Vajra or Bagel Tech so you can destroy these if you have them set already. Or if you've already got these out and you think your opponent might want to destroy you by battle if they swarm with a bunch of monsters, you can get out Achilles' Shield. Or if you're worried about being targeted or destroyed by card effects, you can get out Aegis. Kind of situational, like I said, you may want to tag these out. These are kind of your side deck slots. If one of your other artifacts is something you'd prefer, switch those out for it. In addition, this card has the effect that if it's destroyed by an opponent's card effect, you can target one card on the field and destroy it, which is pretty nice, just again, if your opponent's trying to Twin Twister or Blind MST your back row. If they hit this, you can chain it. It'll still be destroyed by your opponent's card effect, and you'll get the effect, so it's pretty nice. I already mentioned our two kind of tech cards, the Storming Mirror Force and the Dimensional Barrier. Just in case you're unfamiliar, they're pretty simple. Storming Mirror Force, when an opponent's monster declares attack, return all attack position monsters your opponent controls to the hand. I went with this over the regular Mirror Force just because we already have a lot of destruction with Moralltech and a lot of targeting destruction with things in the extra deck. So this is a good way to cover all your bases. Make sure you can get over those things that can't be targeted or destroyed. Of course, if you're going against something that can be targeted and destroyed, you probably want to switch it out for regular Mirror Force. This is usually a little bit more useful, especially against more meta decks right now. Dimensional Barrier, meanwhile, is declare one card type, Ritual Fusion, Synchro, Ixie, or Pendulum. For the rest of this turn, neither player can special summon monsters of that type. Also negate the effects of all monsters with that type on the field. You can only activate once per turn. This is pretty nice because, one, it's chainable, so again, even if they destroy it or you have to use your Vajra or something, you can just chain this and prevent your opponent from summoning things. More importantly, it kind of goes in with Scythe. Both of these are preventing your opponent from getting extra decks. The only remaining cards in the main deck are Card of Demise and Pot of Duality. These are just your draw cards. Pot of Duality is obviously, look at the top three cards, add one to your hand. You can't special summon this turn. Card of Demise, draw until you have 3 cards in your hand. Can't special summon this turn, and your opponent takes no damage this turn. But we mostly special summon during our opponent's turn. That's when we activate almost all of our effects. So these work really well. You activate them, you get everything, and you can set literally everything in the deck. Your only real worry is getting too many things. You want to make sure that you never set 5 artifacts. You want to have at least one way that you can destroy them, or a card that you can chain to get off the field for something like that. And really, that's just about it. You're just swarming with this, using Scythe to lock down the extra deck, attacking with these big 2,000 plus attack point monsters, and then making the extra deck monsters. This is mostly a level 5 toolbox. You can put whatever rank 5 Ixies you can fit in here. Probably the most important is Pleiades, because these are all light monsters. You can make this. During either player's turn, you can detach to target a card on the field and return it to your hand, which is not only good for stunning your opponent, but you can do things like return your Call of the Haunted if it's stuck on the field. Like you Ixie summon with it, return it back to the hand, and then you can summon something else from the graveyard. In addition, you're probably going to want to play a Gaia Dragon, the Thunder Charger. You can Ixie summon this on top of any rank 5 or 6 Ixie material. It just has 2600 and it does piercing, but some of these monsters, like the Magna Liger and the Volcasaurus, can't attack your opponent under certain conditions, and just in general, almost none of them have over 2500 attack. So if it's used its material, or if you want to use its effect and then be able to attack, you can always just stack this on top and you've got 2600, and you can do piercing, which is nice. In addition, I'd probably recommend at least 1 Leo Arms, just because we have low attack for most of the deck, and just having a 3000 beater has actually gotten me out of a couple sticky situations. Likewise, you can make Utopia the Lightning in this with 3 level 5 light monsters, which is very rare, but it can't activate its effect to go up to 5000 attack unless you have a Utopia attached to it. It's mostly just there because when you attack, your opponent can't activate effects, but on a rare occasion, if you get 5 artifacts out, you can actually make this and Leo Arms, and Leo Arms can equip to any Utopia monster and gave it 3000 attack. So if the stars align, you can make a Utopia the Lightning that has a consistent 5500 attack that's going to be really difficult for your opponent to deal with. I haven't done it yet, but one of you guys out there I'm sure will be able to do it. And that just brings us to the side deck. We're playing mostly light, so having Honest is pretty nice in here. Of course, because we've got the Card of Demise, you often have to discard your hand, but you can always normal summon this or set it if nothing else, and then next turn you can return it to your hand if it doesn't get destroyed, if you can disrupt your opponent enough. It's got 1900 defense, so it's pretty nice. We're playing another Achilles Shield. You probably want to play another Aegis. I don't know, that should be in here instead of that. But just in case you have to deal more with card effects or more with being destroyed in battle, having another copy of that. And then the two other artifacts, there's Lancia. This is unique because it has a hand trap-like effect. You can tribute this card from your hand or face up from your field to make it so that neither player can banish cards for the rest of the turn. And this is actually really useful because with Moralltech at 1, and with all your monsters having effects that activate in the graveyard, you really don't want to be banished. This can actually make things live against stuff like Dark Law, because they won't be able to banish any of your stuff that turn. Likewise, if your opponent's running a whole lot of spell trap destruction and you're worried about it, Artifact Chakram's pretty neat. If one of your spell traps would be destroyed, you can special summon this and then return a spell trap to your hand. So if you have this in your hand and your opponent tries to MST your Storming Mirror Force or your Call of the Haunted, you can return it to the hand and get this. Likewise, if they destroy any of your artifacts during your turn, they won't special summon, so this is a good bit of defense. If they're playing a whole lot of spell trap destruction, you can stop them from doing that in the end phase of your turn. The Mirror Forces, I already told you about. I'd probably recommend them instead of the Storming in a lot of situations. And then we just got Dark Hole and Raigeki, just more board wipes, more destruction. You can easily tech them in here. And Dark Hole works pretty well in this, because a lot of times you don't have any monsters on your side of the field. Especially if you're doing stuff with Vajra, you don't want any monsters on your field. So this can be pretty good, especially the first couple turns, or if you end up having to go second. Which I didn't mention, but most of the time you want to go first with this deck just so you can set everything and then stop your opponent from doing anything first turn. So there you go. There's your deck profile for this week. Not the best deck, but certainly interesting. One of the more fun decks to play. Hopefully you guys will like the full episode. Next week, no idea yet what I'm doing. Until then, good luck and have fun.